Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We are so glad to have you, the learner, here with us today.
Yeah, it's going to be a really good one today.
It really is. We are jumping into a fascinating thought experiment. So I want you to just imagine this scenario for a second.
Okay, lay it out.
You wake up tomorrow in a typical remote farming village in Uganda. Say about 5,000 people live there. You step outside your door, the sun is just coming up, and overnight, 100 mechanical machines have mysteriously appeared right in the town square.
Just dropped right in.
Exactly. But here's the catch. Nobody gave you an instruction manual.
Hmm.
Nobody gave you a billion-dollar government-funded power grid to plug them into.
Right.
Just 100 decentralized mechanical tools sitting there in the dirt. We're talking about things like maize mills, water pumps, welders, grinders, brick presses, and basic woodworking tools.
Yeah, nothing crazy high tech.
Right. So the mission of today's deep dive is to ask what actually happens next. Does the village just thrive and become this economic powerhouse, or does the whole system completely collapse under its own weight?
It's really the ultimate developmental thought experiment, and it challenges basically everything we assume about how rural economic growth is supposed to work.
Okay, let's unpack this. What changes when these machines drop?
Well, to frame our discussion, we have to recognize that we're relying on a fascinating document for this called Rizzoni Research Note number 001. And the core thing to keep in mind is that we are not just talking about farming equipment here.
Right, it's bigger than that.
Much bigger. This isn't a story about shiny new gadgets making life slightly easier. It is a story about what happens when you inject localized production capacity directly into the bloodstream of a community.
Well, okay.
And we're going to trace this from the very first sunrise all the way to a decade down the line. So the first thing we look at is the timeline of days to months right after that drop.
The immediate aftermath.
Exactly. And the immediate impact is a massive, almost violent shock to their local concept of time.
Yeah, the research note calls it the drastic reduction of human friction and physical toil.
Yeah.
And, to really understand the mechanics of this, you have to visualize the physical toll of a pre-mechanized village. We are talking about tasks that previously consumed hours and hours of just back-breaking, exhausting manual labor.
Oh, absolutely. Hand shelling maize, milling grain by literally grinding rocks together.
Right. Or walking 5 miles just to fetch 50 pounds of water and carrying it back on your shoulders.
Those tasks are essentially a black hole for human potential. I mean, they consume every available waking hour just to maintain a baseline of survival.
Just to not starve.
Right. But when a mechanical water pump or a diesel maize mill enters the equation, a task that took, say, 6 hours of physical labor is suddenly compressed into 12 minutes.
12 minutes, that is wild.
The fundamental constraints of human muscle power are just lifted.
To put this in perspective for you, the listener, imagine if your typical 40-hour work week, all the emails, the meetings, the spreadsheets, the commuting, was suddenly compressed into a single 15-minute task on Monday morning.
That's a great way to think about it.
You don't just take a nap for the rest of the week, right? I mean, maybe for a day. But eventually, you have this massive abundance of time. You start producing other things.
Exactly.
And that's the first order effect in the village. There's an immediate, localized surplus of goods. Suddenly, they have more processed flour, cleaner water, uniform construction bricks, and welded metal frames than they have ever seen in their entire history.
Right, so the common assumption is that the village just acts as a factory, right? They just start pumping out goods, exporting them, and getting rich.
Yeah, that seems like the logical next step.
Actually, no. If they just act as a factory, the experiment fails.
Wait, really?
Yeah. The real economic engine doesn't start when they use the machines to make flour or bricks. The engine starts when the machines break.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because you're saying the breakdown is actually the goal.
What's fascinating here is that the mechanical failure is the exact catalyst for sustainable growth.
Oh,
Think about it. When a water pump loses pressure, or a maize mill blows a head gasket, a hyper-local demand emerges out of absolutely nowhere.
I see.
Suddenly, the village doesn't just need water or flour anymore. It needs spare parts. It needs specialized lubricants. It needs repair technicians with very specific diagnostic skills.
Oh, wow. So the village economy instantly shifts from being purely agricultural to integrating basic mechanical maintenance. It's like the birth of the repair economy.
Precisely. The broken machine isn't a failure of the experiment. It forces a diversification of labor.
Right, because you can't have a modern economy if literally 100% of the population is just farming.
Exactly. The breakdown necessitates the mechanic, the parts runner, the hardware importer.
Which brings us to the medium term, right? The 1 to 3 year ripple effect.
Yes.
Because the village now has this burgeoning, kind of messy, highly active repair economy. The very social structure of the community begins to reorganize itself around the machines.
It does. Over the next few years, we see the emergence of micro-enterprises.
Yeah, ownership of a machine fundamentally transforms a laborer into an entrepreneur.
That transformation is profound. I mean, if you operate the maize mill, you aren't just a farmer processing your own crop anymore.
Right.
You are a processing business. You're taking a cut of your neighbor's crop. If you have the brick press, you are no longer just a guy making mud blocks for your own house. You are the foundation of a local construction startup.
And with that shift, the value of labor flips entirely. Historically, raw muscle power was the absolute most critical asset a person could possess. If you could swing a hoe for 10 hours, you had value.
Exactly.
But the moment the machines arrive, that raw physical endurance is severely devalued.
It plummets in value, yeah.
But wait, I have to stop you there because that brings up a really dark nuance. We are talking to an audience that knows how disruptive technology can be.
Sure.
If technical skill skyrockets and muscle power plummets, what happens to the 50-year-old farmer who has only ever used physical muscle? Like a guy who simply cannot learn to operate or repair a welder.
Right. That's a tough situation.
Sure. Does inequality just absolutely spike in the village? We can't pretend this is a perfectly utopian transition.
You are hitting on a major source of socioeconomic friction, and the research note acknowledges this clearly.
Okay, so it does cause issues.
Oh, yes. Inequality does spike in the short term. The safe, efficient machine operators and the specialized technicians, the ones who know how to calibrate the grinders, they become the highest earners in the community almost overnight.
Wow.
The social hierarchy realigns based entirely on technical skill.
That makes sense.
So the older generation, or those who simply cannot adapt, often find themselves displaced. They are forced to either work for the new micro-entrepreneurs at a much lower relative wage, or they have to rely on the broader surplus the village is generating.
It's a harsh reality of any industrial revolution, I guess, even a micro one.
It really is.
That friction is real.
Mm-hmm.
But there's another massive point of friction that we have to address.
Oh, what's that?
I'm looking at this from a pure logistics standpoint for the listener's sake. We are talking about 100 machines running constantly. Milling, welding, pumping water.
Yeah.
How on earth are they powering all of this without that billion-dollar national grid we talked about earlier? You can't run a welding business on good intentions.
That is the pivotal bottleneck of the whole experiment. The research note calls it the energy hook, and it is honestly a brilliant mechanism.
The energy hook. Okay, explain that.
You see, these 100 machines create a collective, undeniable appetite for power, and that shared appetite acts as a forcing function.
Forcing function.
Right. It creates an organized economic priority that simply did not exist when people just wanted a single light bulb to read by at night.
But how does that actually manifest? Walk me through the mechanics of a village without massive capital suddenly generating power.
Let's trace the causality. Because the maize mill generates a 300% increase in daily flour output, the miller suddenly has excess capital.
Okay, he's making money.
Right. He uses that newfound profit to buy a medium-sized diesel generator. But he only needs to run his mill from 6 a.m. to noon. He has all this excess wattage sitting idle all afternoon.
I see where this is going.
Meanwhile, the welder next door desperately needs power, but he can't afford his own generator yet. So they strike a deal. They run a literal heavy-duty cable across the dirt road.
Wow.
The welder pays the miller for the spillover power. Suddenly, without any government intervention whatsoever, a localized micro-utility company is born.
That makes perfect sense. The shared cost forces collaboration.
Exactly.
And I imagine that scales up pretty quickly. If 10 micro-enterprises realize they are burning all their profits on really expensive imported diesel, they have a highly incentivized reason to pool their resources.
Absolutely they do.
So they form a cooperative to purchase a solar microgrid because the return on investment is immediate and mathematically obvious to all of them. Or they even use their combined leverage to successfully lobby for a national grid extension.
Exactly. The energy infrastructure follows the localized demand rather than waiting for a top-down grid extension that might never arrive.
That is fascinating.
And that localized demand drives something else just as critical, an educational pivot.
Oh, the education shift is staggering. Think about the historical path for youth in these rural areas. If you wanted opportunity, your only option was to migrate away, usually to major urban centers like Kampala, just to find low-skilled work.
Right, the classic rural brain drain.
You go to the city to wash cars or carry bricks because your home village has hit an economic ceiling. But the moment these machines drop, formal and informal education shifts heavily toward practical STEM fields.
Yes, the machines create a tangible reason to stay and learn.
Exactly.
Young people stop packing their bags for the slums of Kampala and start seeking out apprenticeships right at home.
Yeah, they want to learn metallurgy from the welder.
Right. They want to learn electrical wiring to help manage the new solar co-op. They learn business management and basic accounting because the local maize miller needs someone to track his profits and his spillover energy sales.
They create a local ladder of opportunity.
Exactly.
So you have these young people staying in the village to learn machining instead of fleeing to the city. But eventually, a village economy caps out, doesn't it?
Well, yes and no.
I mean, if everyone is just repairing each other's water pumps and buying each other's flour, where does the new external money come from? Which brings us to the third-order effects, looking 5 to 10 years down the road.
This is where we see the map literally being redrawn. Over a decade, the compounding returns of this localized mechanization fundamentally alter the geography of the region.
Yeah, okay.
The initial 100 machines do not stay isolated. They mutate into complex, interconnected industries. This is the concept of clustered industrialization.
Clustered industrialization. I hear that, but I have to play devil's advocate and push back a bit.
Go for it.
It sounds incredible in theory, almost a bit utopian, right?
Yeah.
But can 100 basic woodworking tools and water pumps really stop urbanization and attract big external money?
It's a totally valid skepticism.
I mean, we're talking about a few grinders and welders in a remote village. Why would a major bank or a massive agricultural distributor care about that?
But you have to look at what external capital is actually hunting for. Banks, distributors, and larger firms are always looking for surplus, stability, and de-risked environments.
De-risked environments, right.
They do not want to fund a single guy with a manual handsaw. But when they look at this village 10 years after the machine drop, they don't just see a few independent welders. They see that the foundational infrastructure is already built and battle-tested.
Because the village has already solved its own problems.
Exactly. The investors see a skilled, localized workforce that knows how to maintain machinery. They see reliable, community-managed energy grids. They see a network of specialized repair technicians.
Yeah, that makes it a totally different proposition for an investor.
The village has effectively de-risked itself. So a regional agricultural firm comes in and says, hey, we don't need to build a processing facility from scratch. We can just contract with the existing network of 10 mechanized mills right here.
Oh, wow.
A village that started with a few independent woodworking tools evolves into a regional manufacturing hub for custom furniture or agricultural implements.
The 100 machines were just the spark that proved the village was capable of managing complex industrial systems.
This raises an important question, though. What happens when that spark flickers out?
Ah, the reality check.
Because this trajectory is absolutely not guaranteed, it is not an inevitable march toward prosperity. The research note is very clear about the vulnerabilities here.
Right.
Without the right design and intervention, a mechanization shock like this can stall out completely and actually leave the village worse off than before.
The pitfalls are incredibly real, and the source lays them out so plainly. The first and most deadly risk is what they call the maintenance chasm.
The maintenance chasm, yes.
We talked about how the breakdown sparks the repair economy, but that only works if repair is actually possible.
Exactly.
If a critical machine breaks and the nearest replacement part is a 3-day journey away across unpaved roads, the machine is dead. The entire economic engine just stops.
It ceases to be an economic driver and becomes a rusted monument to failed intentions. And honestly, this happens constantly with traditional, poorly planned aid drops.
It's so frustrating. To really visualize the cascading systemic failure of the maintenance chasm, I kind of think of it like this. Imagine having a state-of-the-art smartphone, but you have no charging cable, and the nearest electronics store is a 3-day walk away.
Yeah, the device quickly becomes a very expensive paperweight.
Exactly. Or, looking at the village ecosystem, think about our micro-utility example from earlier. If that central maize mill goes down because of a single $5 broken fan belt, and they can't source a new one, it's not just the miller who suffers.
The fallout is immediate. The miller stops buying diesel. He stops generating spillover power, which means the welder next door instantly loses his electricity and defaults on his own contracts.
Wow, a total domino effect.
And the local baker who relied on the miller's cheap, high-volume flour suddenly has to import expensive flour, forcing him to raise the price of daily bread for the entire village.
Jeez.
The delivery driver who transported that bread loses his route. The whole localized food and energy web collapses simply because of one inaccessible rubber belt.
It is a terrifying fragility, and it's closely followed by the second major pitfall mentioned in the note, which is the knowledge gap.
This one is huge.
Operating high-powered machinery without proper safety training leads to devastating physical injuries, amputations, or worse.
Yes, safety is a massive hurdle.
And on the flip side of that, operating a newly formed microenterprise without basic business training leads straight to bankruptcy. You cannot just hand someone a heavy-duty brick press and expect them to instantly, intuitively understand profit margins, equipment depreciation, and cash flow management.
You really can't. If the operator prices their bricks based only on the cost of the mud, completely ignoring the eventual cost of replacing the press's hydraulic seals,
Oh, right.
their business is functionally dead. They just don't know it yet.
Which leads perfectly into the third pitfall, financing stagnation. Even if they know how to fix the machine and they know where to buy the part, what if they don't have liquidity?
Exactly.
If the village has no local mechanisms to finance repairs or purchase upgrades, the system starves. When that inevitable breakdown happens, if there is no access to microloans or revolving community credit funds, the repair economy is paralyzed.
This perfectly illustrates why models that just drop off equipment and walk away are fundamentally flawed.
Yeah.
It is a harsh critique of decades of traditional hardware-only development aid. Companies working effectively in this space, like Rizzoni Systems, have recognized that you have to design for rugged maintenance from the very beginning.
You can't just leave it to chance.
Right, you have to actively integrate local business and safety training programs alongside the hardware drop. You must build out supply chain resilience for parts. You aren't just delivering a physical machine, you are delivering the entire support ecosystem required to keep that hardware alive.
So what does this all mean? We've traced this incredible journey. We started at the first sunrise with the shock of time compression.
Yeah.
We watched the messy, beautiful birth of the repair economy. We saw how the energy hook forced the creation of micro-utilities and how clustered industrialization completely rewrote the map for a generation of youth.
It's quite the transformation.
But we also looked at the terrifying realities of the maintenance chasm. What is the ultimate bottom line for you, the listener, as you think about how real, sustainable economic development actually works?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the source material delivers a brilliantly succinct core thesis. It says, the machine is not the product. The machine is the seed.
The machine is the seed.
Yes. The real product is the network of skills, businesses, repairs, transport systems, and opportunities that grow around it.
I love that.
True development doesn't require waiting for a massive, centralized industrial revolution to be bestowed from the top down by a distant government. It starts by planting 100 mechanical seeds in a single village and then relentlessly tending to the chaotic, highly complex human ecosystem that grows out of the dirt around them.
The machine is the seed. That is incredibly powerful, and it perfectly captures why the physical hardware is really just the excuse to build human capital.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for exploring this with us. But before we go, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over.
Oh, this should be good.
The sources we explored today focused entirely on how this decentralized micromechanization model transforms rural villages in emerging economies, right?
Right.
By bypassing the need for massive billion-dollar infrastructure.
Right.
But consider the alternative applications. Think about the decaying Rust Belt towns right here in developed nations.
Oh, wow.
Places in Ohio or northern England that have been economically devastated by the loss of massive centralized factories. We often see these towns waiting decades for a mega corporation to come in and build a new billion-dollar mega plant to save them.
Waiting for a savior, basically.
Exactly. But if this 100 small seeds approach works so perfectly to build local skills, foster resilient repair economies, and create independent micro-enterprises,
Yeah.
could this exact same decentralized model be the key to revitalizing our own forgotten industrial towns?
It is a fascinating parallel. Do you wait for the mega factory, or do you distribute micro-manufacturing tools directly to the residents and let the local ecosystem rebuild itself?
Keep questioning the systems around you and keep wondering whether the billion-dollar blueprint is really better than 100 small, well-placed seeds. We will see you in the next deep dive.